Ladies and gentlemen, you ever wonder why some people just naturally attract followers while others with fancy titles get ignored? It's simple. Real leadership isn't about your position, your corner office, or how loud you can bark orders. Nah, true leadership is about influence. Straw, undeniable, magnetic influence. Think about it. Who would you follow? Some suit hiding behind a job description, or the person who lives it, breathes it, and makes you believe you can do it too? Exactly. See, weak leaders think authority comes from a nameplate on a desk. They think a title means automatic respect. But let me tell you, titles don't lead people. People lead people. And people only follow those who inspire action, who radiate certainty, who make the impossible seem within reach. You ever seen a general who hesitates in battle, his troops scatter? You ever seen a coach who doubts his own game plan? The team falls apart. Leadership isn't handed to you. It's earned in the trenches, in the moments when you stand firm while everyone else wavers. Here's the hard truth. If people only follow you because they have to, you're not a leader. You're a placeholder. Real leaders, they make people want to follow them. They don't need a rule book or threats. They've got vision, passion, and an unshakable belief that pulls others into their orbit. Look at history. Martin Luther King, Jr. didn't have a corporate title. Steve Jobs got fired before he changed the world. They led because they made people believe, not because some piece of paper said they could. And let's keep it real. Fear doesn't build loyalty. Inspiration does. You can scare people into short-term compliance, but if you want real commitment, if you want a team that fights for you even when it's hard, you've got to connect to something deeper. You've got to show them the why. You've got to make them see what you see, feel what you feel, and crave the victory as badly as you do. That's how movements start. That's how empires get built, not by authority, by unbreakable influence. So ask yourself right now, are people following you because they have to, or because they'd never dream of walking away? If it's the first one, you've got work to do. Because the world's greatest leaders, the ones who change industries, who ignite revolutions, who leave legacies, they didn't rely on titles. They commanded respect through action. They earned trust through consistency. They built armies not with demands, but with unstoppable belief. That's the difference. That's the secret. You don't need permission to lead. You just need the courage to step up, and the fire to make others step up with you. Asterisk, asterisk, you ever notice how some people walk into a room and instantly command attention? Not because they're screaming for it, but because their very presence demands respect. That's the difference between demanding respect and commanding it. One comes from insecurity, the need to prove you're in charge. The other, it comes from an unshakable inner authority that radiates through every action, every decision, every silent moment of composure under pressure. Let me break it down for you. Weak leaders think respect is about making people fear them. They throw their weight around, they micromanage, they need constant validation that they're the boss. But here's the brutal truth. Fear breeds compliance, not loyalty. The second your back is turned, that team you bullied into submission will either rebel or abandon ship. Real leaders, they don't need to remind everyone who's in charge, because when you truly lead, people never forget. Think about the best coach you ever had. Did they need to scream to get your attention, or was it the way they carried themselves? The way they knew exactly when to push you harder and when to pull you aside. That made you want to run through walls for them. That's the power of leading by example. Your energy sets the temperature for the entire team. Show up distracted, they'll be distracted. Show up unprepared, they'll cut corners, but show up locked in, fully present, radiating quiet confidence. Watch how quickly they match your intensity. Here's where most so-called leaders fail. They want the perks of leadership without the responsibility. They want the salary, the title, the corner office, but they're not willing to do what true leadership requires. Leadership isn't about being served, it's about serving. It's about being the first one in and the last one out. It's about taking the blame when things go wrong and giving away the credit when things go right. It's about looking out for your people even when nobody's looking at you. That's how you build respect that lasts. Ever seen a leader who panics under pressure? The whole team collapses like a house of cards. But when you stand firm in the storm, when you make the tough call without flinching, that's when people start trusting your leadership at a bone, deep level. They don't just follow you. They believe in you, and that belief, it turns ordinary groups into unstoppable teams. Here's the raw truth nobody tells you. Respect isn't given, it's earned. In the trenches, in the grind, in those unglamorous moments when character is revealed. It's earned when you choose honesty over convenience, when you keep your word even when it costs you, when you treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. People notice that, they remember that, and that's what separates bosses from true leaders. So ask yourself, when you walk into a room, do people straighten up because they have to or because they want to? Do they follow your orders or do they chase your vision? There's a canyon of difference between the two. One is the hollow shell of leadership. The other, that's how legends are built. You don't demand respect, you command it, not with your mouth, but with your moves. Not with your title, but with your track record. That's how real leaders operate. That's how dynasties are born. Asterisk, asterisk, what's the fastest way to lose your team's trust? Indecision. That moment when all eyes are on you and you freeze, that's when respect starts leaking out of the room like air from a punctured tire. Weak leaders drown in what-ifs, while strong leaders cut through uncertainty like a hot knife through butter. Your people don't need perfection, they need direction. They'll forgive a wrong decision faster than no decision at all, because at least a wrong call shows you've got the guts to lead. Here's the brutal truth about leadership they don't teach in business school. Your team can smell fear from a mile away. When you hesitate, they panic. When you waffle, they doubt. But when you stand firm in your conviction, even when you're scared shitless inside, that's when magic happens. That's when ordinary groups transform into unstoppable forces. History isn't made by committees, it's made by leaders who had the courage to say this is the way when everyone else was still debating. Let me hit you with some real talk. Your team would rather follow a leader who's wrong sometimes than one who's never certain. Why? Because certainty creates safety. When you project clarity, you're not just making decisions, you're creating an environment where your people can actually do their best work without second guessing every move. The greatest coaches don't call plays wondering if they'll work, they call them knowing their team will make them work. That's the difference between managing and truly leading. Think about the last time you were truly inspired by someone. Was it when they said, "I'm not sure what to do"? Hell no. It was when they stood up in the face of uncertainty and declared, "Follow me." That's leadership alchemy, turning the base metal of doubt into the gold of action. Your people don't need you to have all the answers, they need you to have the courage to pick a direction and go all in. Indecision is the quicks, and that swallows organizations whole, while decisive action is the solid ground empires are built upon. Here's what separates the amateurs from the pros. Amateurs wait until they're 100% sure before moving. Professionals, they make the best call they can with 70% certainty and adjust along the way. In the military, they call this the 70% solution because in battle, waiting for perfect information gets people killed. The same applies to business, to sports, to any team endeavor worth doing. Paralysis by analysis isn't caution, it's cowardice dressed up as prudence. Your competitors aren't waiting for perfect conditions. Why should you? Let me break down why this matters at a biological level. Humans are hardwired to follow certainty. Our ancestors didn't survive by following the tribesmen who said maybe we should go this way or that way. They followed the ones who pointed decisively and said that's where we're going. Thousands of years later, that same wiring still drives us. When you project unshakable clarity, you're not just leading, you're tapping into primal forces that make people want to follow you. That's not manipulation, that's understanding human nature at the deepest level. The irony, most leaders are afraid to be decisive because they're worried about being wrong, but here's the secret. Your team knows you're not perfect. What they can't stand is watching you pretend to be. Most respected leaders aren't the ones who never make mistakes, they're the ones who own their decisions completely, adjust quickly when needed, and never leave their people wondering which version of their leader they're going to get today. Consistency isn't just a virtue in leadership, it's the oxygen your team breathes. What separates good leaders from legendary ones? The ability to see greatness in people before they see it in themselves. The average boss sees employees as tools to get work done, but transformative leaders, they see raw potential waiting to be unleashed. They understand that their real job isn't to manage tasks, it's to mine the gold buried inside every team member. When you approach leadership with this mindset, you don't just build a team, you build an army of believers who will move mountains for your vision. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most leaders never grasp. People don't rise to your expectations, they rise to your belief in their potential. Think about that teacher, coach, or mentor who changed your life. What made them different? They didn't just see what you were, they saw what you could be. That's the alchemy of extraordinary leadership. When you look at a struggling employee and see future leadership material rather than a problem to manage, You create the conditions for transformation. Your belief becomes their reality. The weakest leaders focus on weaknesses, the strongest leaders amplify strengths. While mediocre managers waste energy fixing flaws, elite leaders invest time discovering and magnifying what makes each person uniquely powerful. This isn't touchy, feely nonsense, it's strategic genius. When you position people in their zone of genius, you get exponential results. The janitor becomes an operations wizard. The shy analyst becomes your star presenter. The difficult employee becomes your most passionate advocate. This isn't magic, it's leadership at its highest level. Let me drop some real talk. Your team already knows their weaknesses better than you ever will. What they're starving for is someone who recognizes their dormant strengths. Most people go through their entire careers never having a leader truly believe in them. Be the exception. When you become that leader, the one who sees the champion hidden inside the average performer, you create loyalty that no paycheck could ever buy. They won't just work for you, they'll bleed for the vision. Here's the counterintuitive secret. The more you focus on pulling out greatness, the less you need to worry about managing performance. People naturally elevate their game when they're operating in their sweet spot. Your job isn't to micromanage, it's to create the conditions where people can access their best selves. This requires radical trust, intentional positioning, and the patience to let people grow into their potential. The payoff, a team that performs not because they have to, but because they're finally able to show what they're truly capable of. Warning, this approach separates the real leaders from the pretenders fast. It's easy to criticize, it's easy to focus on flaws. It takes genuine leadership courage to look past current limitations and bet on someone's unseen potential. But here's what they don't tell you. When you make that bet, you create a psychological contract more binding than any employment agreement. The person who knows you believed in them when no one else did. They'll walk through fire to prove you right. That's how you build not just a team, but a legacy. The most powerful leadership tool isn't authority, it's reflection. Show people who they could be by holding up the mirror of their potential. Speak to their future self until that version becomes real. Celebrate small wins as evidence of bigger things to come. This isn't cheerleading, it's strategic leadership. That compounds over time. When you consistently reflect back to people a better version of themselves than they dare to imagine, you don't just change their performance, you change their life trajectory. And that's when ordinary leadership transforms into something legendary. Leadership isn't a title you earn, it's a war you fight every single day. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you start losing ground. Real leaders understand they're in an endless battle against three relentless enemies. Mediocrity that wants to drag you down, excuses that want to derail you, and fear that wants to paralyze you. This isn't some corporate pep talk, this is the raw truth about what separates those who occupy leadership positions from those who actually lead. The battlefield doesn't care about your resume, it only responds to your daily courage. Here's what nobody tells you about leadership. It's not about the big speeches or vision statements, it's about showing up when you're exhausted, making tough calls when you're uncertain, and standing firm when everyone else wants to quit. The greatest leaders aren't those who avoid struggles, they're the ones who get stronger through them. They treat every challenge as training ground, every failure as intelligence gathering, every setback as preparation for what's coming next. While weak leaders pray for calm seas, warrior leaders sharpen their skills in the storm. Let me break down the brutal reality. Leadership isn't about comfort, it's about combat readiness. Your team needs to see you winning your inner battles before they'll trust you to lead theirs. When they watch you conquer your laziness, face your fears, and silence your excuses, that's when real leadership credibility is earned. This isn't about pretending to be perfect, it's about being transparent in your struggles while demonstrating what victory looks like. People don't follow theories, they follow living examples of overcoming. The most dangerous enemy isn't outside competition, it's the internal voice whispering good enough. Average leaders hit their targets and relax. Elite leaders hit their targets and raise the bar. This relentless pursuit of excellence isn't optional, it's the price of staying relevant in a world that's evolving at breakneck speed. Your organization doesn't need you to maintain standards, it needs you to shatter them, not for ego, but because stagnation is the beginning of the end. The marketplace has no mercy for those who stop growing. Here's the secret weapon of top leaders. They treat comfort like kryptonite. They know that growth lies on the other side of discomfort, so they deliberately position themselves in challenging environments. While others are seeking easier paths, true leaders are engineering tests that will force them to level up. This isn't masochism, it's strategic self-development. Every difficult conversation you initiate, Every unpopular stand take, every old habit you break is another battle won in the war for extraordinary leadership. Warning, this path isn't for the faint-hearted. You'll face more resistance from inside your team than from competitors. Most people are conditioned to resist elevation because growth requires change, and change triggers fear. Your job isn't to make the journey comfortable, it's to make the destination compelling enough that people will push through their discomfort to get there. This requires the delicate balance of challenging without crushing, pushing without breaking, leading without dragging. Master this and you'll build not just a team, but an unstoppable movement. The battlefield doesn't care about your feelings, it only responds to action. You can have the purest intentions and deepest knowledge, but if you're not willing to engage in the daily grind of leadership warfare, you're just another theorist. Real impact happens when theory meets the trenches, when your philosophy is tested by reality and comes out stronger. This is where true leaders separate themselves, in those unglamorous moments between battles when they're preparing, adjusting, and fortifying for what coming next. The war never ends, it just changes battlefields. Your job isn't to win once, but to keep winning every day. Expend key point 6, and don't add any ending sentence, and make it lengthy on 500 words without heading and conclusion, and add hooks. Ever wonder why some leaders create championship teams while others just manage participation trophies? The difference lies in one uncompromising word: standards, not the kind you post on some forgotten office wall, but the brutal, non-negotiable expectations you live by every damn day. Weak leaders lower the bar when things get hard. Elite leaders, they'd rather burn the whole thing down than compromise what they stand for. That's not arrogance, that's the price of excellence in a world addicted to shortcuts. Here's the ugly truth nobody wants to admit. Your team will never rise above your personal standards. They can't smell a fraud from miles away, the leader who preaches excellence but cuts corners when nobody's looking. But when you become the living embodiment of your expectations, when your daily actions scream louder than your motivational speeches, that's when the magic happens. People don't follow what you say, they follow what you tolerate. And right now, your organization is a perfect reflection of what you've allowed, what you've accepted, what you've settled for. Let me hit you with some brutal clarity. Excellence isn't an accident, it's a series of ruthless decisions made in the dark when nobody's watching. It's choosing preparation over procrastination when you're exhausted. It's demanding better when good enough would get you by. It's rejecting the 95% solution when you know 100% exists. This isn't about perfection, it's about refusing to betray your own potential. Marketplace doesn't reward pretty good. History doesn't remember almost. Legacy isn't built on close enough. Your standards aren't just rules, they're your competitive weapon. While others chase trends, you're building foundations. When the economy shifts, your standards become your shock absorbers. When competitors panic, your discipline becomes your advantage. This isn't theoretical, it's how underdogs become champions and startups become empires. The higher you set your bar, the fewer rivals you'll have, because most people quit long before the finish line. Excellence is lonely. By design, that's how you know you're on the right path. Warning, maintaining elite standards will make you enemies. The mediocre will call you unreasonable. The lazy will label you obsessive. The fearful will whisper that you're pushing too hard. Let them. While they're complaining, you'll be conquering. Great leaders understand an ironclad law of human nature. People don't rise to low expectations. Your so-called unrealistic standards today become your team's proud achievements tomorrow. The impossible only stays impossible until someone refuses to accept it. Here's the secret they don't teach in leadership seminars. Your standards are the guardrails of your legacy. Every time you compromise, you're trading tomorrow's respect for today's convenience. Every time you look the other way, you're eroding trust that took years to build. But when you stand firm, when you refuse to lower the bar even when it hurts, that's when you transform from manager to mentor, from boss to leader, from placeholder to legend. Your standards aren't just measuring your team, they're measuring you. The most dangerous leadership delusion, thinking you can demand what you don't demonstrate. You can't preach punctuality while showing up late. Can't champion quality while shipping half-assed work. Can't demand accountability while making excuses. People spot hypocrisy faster than you think. But when your life becomes the ultimate example of your expectations, when your walk matches your talk so perfectly it stings, that's when standards stop being rules and start becoming culture. That's when leadership stops being a position and starts becoming a movement.